itself by circulation, demographics, and yesterday's definitions of influence. But the world has changed. Today, the most powerful currency in media is inspiration. At the Los Angeles Tribune, storytelling is not just journalism, it's art. We are a Grammy-nominated storytelling company, shaping narratives that reach across industries, cultures, and generations. Through documentary films, podcasts, audiobooks, virtual summits, global journals, and stages that bring leaders together, we share stories that uplift, empower, and move people forward. We blend the legacy of a historic newspaper brand with the creative power of modern media. Because the future of media isn't just about reporting what happened, it's about inspiring what's possible. We are the Los Angeles Tribune, a Grammy-nominated storytelling company, challenging the status quo of media.
Live and direct, happy 4th of July, everybody. I'm here alongside Julianne Meyer. And how exciting is it, Julianne, to celebrate 4th of July with storytelling? Today, we're celebrating America's storytellers here on the Los Angeles Tribune as we celebrate Independence Day Live. And we thought, what a special opportunity to bring together some remarkable storytellers, some people that are making the world a better place, some people that are transforming the world. And what a great way to celebrate American leadership. And in fact, we even have one author who's with us, whose family roots all the way back to the Mayweather, or the Mayflower, I should say. And so how exciting is it, Julianne, and happy 4th.
Happy 4th to you, and I couldn't be happier than to celebrate my 4th with you and celebrating authors and Americans and just the nation in general. It's a wonderful day to be here, and I'm very proud to be an American.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited. I know our audience is excited. So feel free to share this around. If you're watching this on replay, leave some comments. And we're going to bring our wonderful panel here up. And this community is very familiar with the folks here on this panel. They're all individuals that have worked with us to spread the message of positivity, to spread the message of making the world a better place. Dr. Alicia Doss, share a little bit about your lineage, because we know that your lineage goes back so far, and I think it's really interesting for our audience to learn about that, about some of your roots, please.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, you know, it's rather beautiful because I'm a blend of both. My mother's great grandfather. Sorry, there's a weird noise in my. There we go. My mother's great grandfather was the second signer of the Declaration of Independence. It's 4 times great grandfather, but Josiah Bartlett was the second signer, and my family has passed down stories of him, and he literally thought he was signing his own death warrant. Because there was, you have to understand what they were up against. They were up against the king. And that's why John Hancock made his signature so big. He wanted the king to be able to read it without his glasses. So my Josiah was a country doctor. It's not like he was some, person who had a lot of power and prestige. He was a somewhat simple person, so it's really not about feeling prepared or feeling that we're in a position of power before we say yes. It's about feeling called. And so it's really inspiring to me to think of that, every year at this time, like, what is it in me that needs to say yes, despite my fears? And my father, so that was my mother. So my father came from India. And so he really never took for granted the freedom that sometimes we can as Americans, because he had to earn his citizenship. And in some ways, he knew more about American history than we did, and was really very loyal to his new country. And so I just think it's a beautiful time to remember we stand on the shoulders of very brave people.
I think that is a beautiful way to kick us off, because we do stand on the shoulders of great people. And I love the point that you mentioned, that your father never really took for granted the liberties and the freedoms that we have as Americans. And I think that a lot of Mo and the rest of us were talking before the live about how a lot of us as Americans tend to start to take things for granted, things that maybe aren't available in other countries. And I've had the privilege of living in a few different countries, and it's definitely different. The way things are done, the way things are run, the way things are celebrated, everything is completely different. And it is a remarkable country. No matter what, we have such amazing opportunities here that are not always available. Leah, what is your favorite celebration with the history of the United States?
Well, going back to the conversation we were having about how we take a lot of our freedoms for granted in this country, you know, I come from an immigrant family from two countries with a lot of difficulties. And like my grandmother would tell me stories when Castro came into power, where you couldn't say anything in the streets because you would be shot. And so this is why my family came from Cuba. And on my Mexican side, they were from a village where the cartel ruled. And so they had to leave so that they didn't have to participate in that type of lifestyle. And so the celebration of freedom for me is every day. Every day, you know, we were talking about how this year may be different, but the thing is that this year and this day, every day that we get to live in this extraordinary country is a day of freedom. We get to practice whatever we choose. There are many countries where you don't really have a choice as to what you want to do in your life for your living or how you want to provide for your family. But, you know, at some point we all came here with that dream of being able to practice what I call our sacred medicine and share it with the world. And I absolutely am in reverence of our country and the freedoms that we have. You know, you can start from the bottom here. You can start with zero resources. And with some efforts, you definitely can achieve the dreams of your soul, of your heart. You can contribute to our society. And there's, you know, these opportunities are not as available in many, many countries. And that's why so many of us have come here, so that we do have that freedom that feels so good, that we can say whatever we want. We can do whatever we want. We can practice whatever we want. And more importantly, we can share that beautiful sacred medicine that's within us in this country that allows us this freedom, which is absolutely extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. And, you know, there's so much diversity between everyone in the United States, and it's called a melting pot for a reason. And I truly love that it does not matter what you look like, what you believe, how you show up, as long as you're being true to yourself. I mean, you know, we have the opportunity to be that and do that. Now, Lorna, I would love for you to... I just unmuted you.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead and share.
Yeah, so I'm going to put this one down for a second. All right. So I'm listening on one and speaking on the other. Is there an echo or not? No.
A little
perfect.
bit.
So the 4th of July and Independence Day means a lot. My mother left Jamaica, and put this one down. My mother left Jamaica at about maybe 18 years old to go live in England with her mom's sister and do her nurse's training to become a registered nurse. And then my dad left Jamaica at about 22 years old and moved to Toronto and did his bachelor's degree in engineering. And then some program that Jimmy Carter had, he took a job as an aerospace engineer in Redondo Beach, California. And then my parents had got married in Toronto. We lived there till I was about 11. And when I hear the stories about how they had to leave parents and leave grandparents and leave relatives to have a chance to get a better life because the healthcare is better, and a whole bunch of other things. And then all of the family members that my dad, over the years, working with the Department of Defense as an aerospace engineer and being a realtor and broker and different entrepreneurial things, has been able to sponsor so many relatives that have come here and become engineers and dentists and lawyers, or their children, or even my own sister, who's been a city attorney in Los Angeles for 25 years, and she's still one right now. And so if the country didn't allow people to come from everywhere, think of all the contributions that all of our cultures have made just out of our little group right here, let alone all the people who've come. So it is something worth celebrating. It truly is. And for every country, although there's good and there's bad, there's things that we like, things we don't, but we have a chance, and especially with this amazing platform, to build bridges, to tear down barriers, to explain things that cause us, like the biases that we sometimes have because we don't understand other people's culture, and we won't know their story if they don't tell us. So I'm honored to be here. I'm excited, and I'm glad that there are movers and shakers such as ourselves that aren't ashamed to tell our story, where we came from, where our family came from, and to love and embrace everybody that's here.
Well said. I want to point out that when
Put this up so I can hear you.
when we were putting together this live, Mo and I were thinking about who we wanted to invite.
Put it down.
I'm going to mute you so that, thank you. So while we were putting together this idea for this live, we were thinking about who we wanted to invite. And of course, we picked people who were amazing storytellers, but I don't think either one of us really realized how diverse our stories were and how amazing it all flows together. And it really is very much American for all of us to be here today from very different backgrounds. And I've got to share mine really quick. My family still lives in Sweden. So I'm like a second generation American, and it's very, I love that we're able to celebrate things no matter what and where we come from. And the American dream is still alive. Now, Dr. Alicia, you have a book that's coming out in the very near future. So I wanted to mention that. But we are talking about storytelling in general. And with the celebration of the 250th birthday of America, what is something that you would love to see happen or maybe alter in the next 250 years?
I think, as we have moved from the Piscean age into the Aquarian age, and stay with me here, I'm not going to be too obvious that I'm from California, but the Piscean age was the age of me. The Aquarian age is the age of we, of the collective, what's good for the collective. And my book is Your Angelic Ancestry behind me. And angels are in a collective. They do what's best for all. It's always in the forefront of their activities and their consciousness. And I'd like to see in the next 250 years, yes, that beautiful capitalism. Yes, that beautiful, you can start off with nothing and become president. I mean, we see the story, I'd love to see more of a group consciousness of what we're in this together. The Maharishi, when they asked him, how do you get along with others? He said, there are no others. And to me, that is so representative of that consciousness of a greater good. And so, where we are both sovereign and creating our own destiny and visualizing it, manifesting it, attracting it, etc., keeping in mind the highest good. Right? What is the highest good? What is that action that brings us all forward in consciousness? So I'd love to see more of that, and also a greater level of individual bravery, where we are going, what is that in me that is calling out to be born? And so that diversity that we have is celebrated, and people have just a little bit more courage to truly express who they are.
Beautiful. Leah, what about you?
Well, number one, everything Alicia said, 100%, I agree. So many of us and our ancestors come here to make their dreams come true. And what I'm seeing now that's already happening, and I believe it's only going to intensify and evolve, is that more and more of our beautiful humans on this planet are starting to think of, well, how can I help other people make their dreams come true? And again, coming from this place of generosity, right? Of how may I serve? And I see this more and more. The other thing is, for our country to start seeing more and more of its brilliance and having reverence for our country, for our immigrants, and for our collective. because it kind of became popular at some point to sort of like not love the country and not be patriotic. And I think we are missing a little bit of that. And there's nothing wrong with being patriotic. There's nothing wrong with loving the land, the sacred land that you chose to plant yourself in and to live your life in. And having, our great ancestors, like in Native American traditions, they have deep reverence for the land, because the land is what sustains us. And we have chosen this land right now in this country. And we may love all lands, but this is the one that we are choosing to share our sacred medicine. And so having a reverence for, how may I serve this land? How do I serve this sacred land? By serving the people, by giving to the people, by helping the people who come here to elevate their life, live their dreams, share their sacred medicine. And to all of us that are here, not just the new people that come in, but to everyone that's already here, we are a very, very powerful nation. And the more that we come together, the more we can serve the entire world.
Mm. Well said. Something that sticks out to me that I want to mention is patriotism isn't political. So it doesn't matter what, you can still be patriotic no matter what your political beliefs are. And I think that we started to confuse the two. And so I love this idea of bringing it back to, this is our land, this is our country. And, we are one, as Dr. Alicia was mentioning before. Lorna, what would you love to add to this?
I would love for us to do more cookouts and more activities, because you
got an
notice
echo
that.
with you. Can you put the other thing down, please?
Sure. Oh, is that microphone on too? Yeah. Okay, is that better?
No.
Okay.
So we're going to mute you until you get that ready. So let's just keep moving. So, Lorna.
Okay, I'll just have to go back on. So I think that the same way that when you're sitting at a basketball game or a football game or a concert, you don't say, oh, by the way, who'd you vote for? Oh, by the way, do you go to church or do you not? So more just events that we need to be creative. And I'd love 250 years from now for those things to not even be a thought, for us to just really be able to just dialogue and spend time and break bread and have fun, and not even have that be not even in our subconscious mind, because it's what we don't know we're thinking that causes our responses and our reactions and even our expressions. Like if we know that somebody just won a Grammy or it's our favorite singer, we're all geeked up. But otherwise, we could probably care less about even smiling at someone. So I'm looking forward to everybody having genuine kindness and concern for each other. And I think last week, I was rushing somewhere and I got out of my car because there was like a 3-car pileup. It was 3 separate young girls, all of them like under 21. And I'm literally flagging people down and nobody would stop. They're like, oh no, I got to get my kids to daycare. They're not telling me I got to get to work. I got to get to school. And like after about 10 minutes, and I'm going car to car, I'm hugging these girls. They're hysterical. 2 cars are damaged. Nobody died or anything like that. Finally, a officer off duty stopped and a resident physician stopped. So we just got to get to caring more about people, whether we know them or not, because there's somebody's child, there's somebody's daughter, somebody's mother. So when we just get dialed in more to not just caring about our 4 and no more, we're going to have a whole different world.
Well said. Bringing back the simple things, the community.
I'm going to put this back up.
Community. Let's mute you. We're going to, bring back this idea of community, bringing back the simple things that really elevate people's energy levels and that sense, of just oneness. Dr. Alicia, this is something that you talk about quite often. And what are some things that people can do, in your opinion, to start elevating their own energy and because be the change you want to see? And so if you could.
Absolutely. What can people do to start being in a higher consciousness is a way I'm hearing your question. I'm a spiritual intuitive. And so, really simple things. One is creating that groove of a greater neural pathway to what you do want. We are in, just like our ancestors said, this is what we want. Against all odds, we're going to take action for it, towards it. We're going to say yes. And so we can do that in our own lives. Small things done consistently create major impact. So for me, that's meditation. If I don't meditate every day, I'm going to have different choices. I'm going to make different choices. So it's really just choosing 2 or 3 things that bring you into that higher consciousness, because we're multidimensional. We have this consciousness and we have a higher consciousness. And so it's, what are those 2 or 3 things I'm going to do consistently? I just read today that Stephen King wrote every single day 2,000 words, even on his mother's death, even on Christmas. And so he didn't wait for, there was another famous author who said, I always write when inspiration shows up. I think it was Wordsworth. And he said, fortunately, inspiration always shows up every morning at 9 a.m. So it's really creating those habits that court miracles.
I love that. Actually, just so you know, Dr. Leisha, Leah and I were literally talking about that yesterday. So great minds, right? And Leah, what would you love to add to that?
Well, I have found that, just like Lorna was saying earlier, sometimes you have reactions to people and you don't even know why. And what I have found that really helps people is becoming tremendous stalkers of their thought processes. And what are the thoughts that we want to stalk? We want to notice any thoughts of aversion towards ourselves, or towards whether somebody comes from a certain country or a political party, or what they do for a living, any judgments or criticism towards ourselves or anyone else. So I always like to start with cleaning up the thought processes, because everything we do, everything we feel, everything we say starts with a thought. And so when we can become our best stalkers and look at the thoughts that separate us from other humans versus the ones that can unite us, this is when we really start to elevate our energy. Because really, we are all energy masters. And some people think, oh, you have to, go into higher states of consciousness and study in the Himalayas in a cave to really elevate your consciousness. But really, we are constantly generating energy. And the way we direct the energy that we create for ourselves, our communities, our country, and everyone in our life is by optimizing our thought processes and making sure that the thoughts that we have are thoughts that unite us and that elevate us and that make us say things and do things that will generate positivity in the world. And so I think things that sound very unattainable are actually very attainable with just a little bit of attention. And if you want to go into some of the more like Native American type studies, becoming a stalker, like a wild animal, right? We need to nourish ourselves. We stalk our prey, but our prey are our thoughts. And we want to make sure that those thoughts are thoughts that really nourish us. And when we do that, we nourish everyone, including our excellent nation.
Wonderful. And it was about 2 months ago that we were introduced to the wonderful work of Leah when she spoke at our leadership week. And I remember listening to her speak for the first time, thinking what a calming presence she had. And when I hear her speak, I feel calmer. And I think that that's what we need in this country, and that's what we need in the world, is we need to be a little more calm. We need to be a little more grounded, and her work certainly does that. Her presence does that. And so we're so excited to help amplify that, because it's definitely very much in sync with our mission. This pen was given to me as a gift by Ken Honda, my good friend. What we're going to do is we're going to go watch a quick 1-minute clip of Ken, who spoke at the Pillars of Power film, who's a contributor to one of our documentary films called Pillars of Power. Several of the folks here were a part of that premiere. And we'll be back in about 1 minute.
There are 2 kinds of wealth, visible wealth and invisible wealth. We often focus on visible wealth, which is money in the bank and real estate, cars and belongings. But what's more important is invisible wealth, which is friendship, love, trust, generosity, kindness. That kind of invisible asset or invisible wealth is not seen. And it's more valuable than some money in the bank. That doesn't mean that money is not important, but if you want to have a beautiful life, you need to have both visible asset and invisible asset.
Shout out to our my good friend and one of our business partners here at the Los Angeles Tribune, Ken Honda. This is a beautiful pen. That was originally Ken's pen. So thank you, Ken. I was just remembering that as I was taking notes, listening to these incredible speakers. And of course, our Pillars of Power film series has become the #1 personal development film series in the world, in the sense of hype and excitement, and it's the talk of the town. And so we're so excited to have also our Lioness film series, and Donna Campbell, who co-directed Pillars of Power with me, has done such a remarkable job leading the way with some amazing projects. So we want to take a second to give a shout out to Donna Campbell and the wonderful films and the incredible grand vision that that's being executed. And with that being said, Julianne Meyer, back to you.
Well, I mean, how do you beat that? That's the thing about being a Grammy-nominated storytelling company, is we have the opportunity to tell stories in a bigger, grander way. And every person that has been on the screen today has been a part of that, and in some way or another, and also creating that ripple of kindness, that ripple of goodness, that ripple that changes the world. And to be a part of that is such an amazing experience. And I'm just curious, throughout this entire broadcast, we've been talking about like little details and things that elevate our experience and coming together as a nation. And Lorna touched on this, if I can use my words, touched on the idea of the little simple things and going back to things that make us happy and coming together in that regard. Now, I'm just curious, I'm going to actually ask you, Dr. Alicia, what is something that has made a huge difference in your life, that has helped you to create your message in a bigger and better way so that you can help elevate and change the world with kindness?
It's a little unconventional of an answer, but that's what America is based on. And oh my goodness, here we are, 250 years. I have a friend who has 4 signers of the Declaration in her history. I'm going to answer your question, but I want to preface it with, so our ancestors, and then another friend who we just discovered is also related to Josiah Bartlett. So we have, we stand on the shoulders of giants, but our ancestors were in a room little over 250 years ago, not knowing how this would go, signing this document that, like I said, my ancestor thought it was his death warrant, but he did it anyway for us. And the reason I bring this up is the thing that really brings me into a transformation is probably not would be the answer you would expect on a very respected panel, but I want to say it's speaking to spirit. And in my way, I do that with angels, with archangels, speaking through the angelic language. Now, the reason I say that is because that connects me directly to that which is who we all are, which is love. So everybody in my family were MDs. Even my ancestor that I keep talking about was a country doctor. And at some point, probably because I was born in America, I wasn't born in India like my father, who, by the way, wanted to be a lawyer. My father wanted to be an attorney and would have been a very gifted attorney, but his father said, no, you need to be a doctor. So he became a doctor. Then you come to this country and we think we can be anything we want to. And so I started hearing angels speak in their own language to me when I was very young, and that became my life work. And what I have then brought to many, many other people with the idea that angel means messenger of God, that you too are a messenger of God. And what way is God, spirit, the universal life force, speaking through you in a way it does not through anyone else? So just as our ancestors did not know what would happen when they said yes, I think that's the thing that made the most difference for me was saying yes to who I am. I was pre-med like the rest of my family. I did become a doctor, but a different kind. No, and so it was saying yes to my calling. So I think I'm saying to everybody on this beautiful occasion of the independence of our country, what is it in you that is crying out for freedom? And I just, I see all of us just sending light to each other, being exactly who we are and saying yes to 100% of who we were born to be.
100% of who we were born to be. And Leah, you're always talking about sacred medicine. And Lorna, I'd like you to get ready because I don't want there to be the feedback. But Leah, you're always talking about sacred medicine. And I think that how we show up really does shape the world. And I'm just curious, with kindness and everything that we've been talking about, what would you love to add to this conversation? Because I think that your perspective is similar to Dr. Alicia's and my own, and even Lorna's, but we all come from a different place. And that's what we're here. We're celebrating our diversity. We're celebrating our country. We're celebrating in general. So I would love for you to share your thoughts.
Yes. So, there are so many ways that we can expand our consciousness, that we can achieve our goals in this life. And many people take different paths. Some take the spiritual path. And I've taken the spiritual path. That's where my work started. But I also had to learn to be fully present and in deep reverence of the existence of being in the human sacred vessel. Because this is the one thing that we can all see and that we are all aware of. And sometimes having that deep reverence for the sacred physical vessel, for everything that we get to do in the physical realm, actually becomes the most spiritual thing there is. My decision at one point in my life was that all of science, all of technology, everything that we're doing today in the physical world, as superficial as it may seem, is actually the vessel for the highest level of spirituality and service to the world. Because, for example, if you have a media company, or if you have a medical technology, or if you have created a supplementation, anything that you create to elevate humanity is sacred medicine, is the most spiritual thing you can do. And that could be from creating cars that people can navigate in to creating media for people to express themselves and bring their sacred medicine. And so I believe in having the deep reverence for the human condition that allows us to navigate this world and do our good works. And I'm beyond grateful to you guys for having this media outlet to share sacred medicine with humanity, because this is how we serve the rest of our humans so that we can collectively elevate the entire world.
Beautifully said, Leah. And what you're talking about reminds me of this quote that I'm sure we've all heard many times before, and that's that we're not physical beings with a spirit, but we are spiritual beings who have a physical form. And I think that that's such a beautiful quote to ponder on. And if we want to get a little metaphysical, which I'm okay with getting periodically, the idea of an idea, no pun intended, right? Mm-hmm. The idea of an idea, well, that's sort of, if there is a spiritual realm, quote unquote, whatever that may mean to people, and even if it's looking at it just as a psychological exercise, that's okay too. Whatever that may mean for people. Well, what would be that bridge in between our physical form and the spiritual realm? It would be ideas. Our ideas, our thoughts would be that bridge. The invisible part, the metaphysics. One of my good friends, Dr. Joe Vitale, he was asked on Larry King years and years ago, you have a doctorate degree in metaphysics, in the science of metaphysics. What does that even mean, Dr. Joe? And he said to Larry King, he said, it's the study of the invisible, right? And so there are things that are invisible to us that certainly do exist. That's a simple scientific fact. We can actually only see a very small percentage of what's surrounding us. We can't see, there's certain colors that we as human beings will never be able to even understand because we can't see them. We can't imagine them. So there certainly are a lot of invisible things. And going back to the idea of an idea, we here at the Los Angeles Tribune believe it's so important to spread positive ideas, to spread empowering ideas, to spread ideas that help people, not just ideas on how awful the world is, but ideas on how we can positively impact the news. We want this community to help generate positive headlines around the world. And of course, many of the folks here know the different ways that we do that. One of the ways are with our events, whether they're in person or virtually. And at the last Voices of Impact Summit that we did in Los Angeles, we were able to hear from Dr. Alicia and Leah and Julianne. And we have another one coming up July 22nd. So if you are on socials, I encourage you to go and find Julianne Meyer on Facebook, find her on Instagram, find the Los Angeles Tribune, and stay plugged in, because these are not mass marketed events. It's not about reaching as many people as possible. It's about reaching the right people. And this, there are two different newspaper brands that stem to the late 1800s out of Los Angeles. And as of the last 24 months, the Los Angeles Tribune is the only independently owned one, because the other one became publicly traded. And so we don't have to answer to a board who's only interested in the spirit of commerce. We get to actually leverage our brand to make the world a better place independently. And what a great way to celebrate the 4th of July by talking about that, by talking about the fact that we have freedom of speech. We're talking about the fact that you can live the American dream, by talking about the fact that you can be who you want to be and do what you want to do. And with that freedom comes the level of responsibility. And whether it's on the macro, talking about our nation, whether it's on the micro, talking about our lives. When you have freedom and you don't have responsibility, that's when you can fall into traps in your life, whether it's for a nation or whether it's for our lives. We have free will. You can choose to wake up and do hard drugs, as many people do, or you can choose to wake up and write a book that'll make the world a better place, as many people do. Choice is yours, right? So when we have free will, we have to make those decisions. Whether you're a nation, whether you're a business owner, whether you're a mother, whether you're a father, whether you're a sister, a brother, a friend, a neighbor, doesn't matter. Every human being has to make those decisions. And the number one thing that I have seen that has damaged people in business, in life, in leadership, in their pursuit for careers is entitlement. Entitlement is the poison that requires a sacred medicine. That Leah, that term sacred medicine, the first time I heard of it was from Leah. I love it. It has so much power to it. But entitlement is the worst possible thing that you can apply in your life. I see so many people that don't properly give gratitude for opportunities. I see so many people that don't properly give credit to the people that opened the door for them. Right. And all of these individuals, whether it's on a micro level or even on a national level, they don't succeed. Right. The ones that understand gratitude, like my mentor, Doria Cordova, who's here in the audience. Doria Cordova is the world's foremost expert on the principles of Ho'oponopono. Dr. Joe Vitale, another good friend of mine, was also inspired by Doria Cordova, who helped guide the way for Dr. Joe Vitale to write those incredible books and spread the words of Ho'oponopono, ancient Hawaiian principle that talks about gratitude, right? And a lot of the issues that we see people fall into life happen because they don't practice gratitude. You have to practice gratitude. You have to have self-reliance. You have to recognize the work of people like Ralph Waldo Emerson, who wrote an essay called Self-Reliance, which I recommend everyone to read. And so self-reliance and gratitude. A lot of people always ask me, well, what does it take to be successful? What does it take to launch a business? What does it take to have a successful business? And it's those two things fundamentally. If you don't have those two things fundamentally, you don't have the structure to be able to build upon. You know, in the world of real estate and architecture, you have to have a proper structure. If you don't have a proper structure, your building will collapse. And if you don't have a structure of gratitude and self-reliance, your building will collapse. Your business will collapse. Your endeavors will collapse. Your life will collapse. How many relationships have been ruined? How many people end up in divorce because the parties don't practice gratitude and self-reliance? One of my other friends and colleagues, Jack Canfield, who's in our film series, Pillars of Power, he talks about this concept of each party in a relationship taking 100% responsibility for the relationship. A lot of times you have two people that are in a relationship, for example. One person takes 50% responsibility, if you're lucky, by the way. Usually it's less. And the other person takes 50% responsibility. If you're lucky, by the way, usually it's less. But the real way to do it in terms of how to have a truly successful relationship, and this applies to all categories of life. It could be a business relationship or a personal relationship, is for each party to take 100% responsibility. So with that being said, Julianne Meyer, back to you.
Well, how am I supposed to follow that, right? I love the old cliche. It's not even a cliche, but attitude of gratitude. And I think that is one of the most important things that we can have. And also, something that Mo didn't mention, but he did inadvertently, through everything he said, was this idea of connection. Something that Mo has taught me as a businesswoman is the idea of just picking up the phone versus sending an email. How many times, I still have friends that I snail mail them. It's so much more fun because it feels more of an effort. It takes a little bit more of an effort. However, it's that connection. It's taking the 100% responsibility, or at least 50% of the responsibility of the relationship, and taking that to the next level. Now, I know both of you ladies are very good in communication and building community. And I'm just curious, what has been a secret to your success? Let's start with you, Dr. Alicia.
A secret to my success in building community?
And in life, because it's kind of the same thing.
It's 1,000,000,000,000% the same thing. It's connection. It's that I love people. Most of my success has, at least, if not come about from, at least assisted by relationships. And you know that about me, Julianne. And sometimes I look up and I go, how is it that I'm friends with so and so? And it's because I love people. And it is that I think it comes from my decades and decades, my entire adult life of devout spiritual practice. By the way, my spiritual practice is a borrowing from many different forms. You could, if you said, what religion or spiritual path are you, I would say yes. Right? Not that I can't commit, I'm committed to love, but I think that I'm really a consummate student. And so it really is, the secret to my success has for the most part been connection. And I certainly have a lot of fears, and I can certainly be hesitant, but I'm really hesitant to go up and talk to anybody about something that inspires me. I was just on Mark Marcel's podcast yesterday, a Grammy-nominated poet. And it was only because I went up to him after he spoke at Voices of Impact and was so moved. And I didn't think for a second, like, oh, I shouldn't or whatever. Do you know, that is just me, because when you love and you sincerely love and you let love lead you, well, life really rather takes care of itself, including success.
Well said. I want to point something out. The reason why I'm talking about success is because that's the American dream. It's the American dream to come here and take advantage of all these opportunities. So how are we doing that? Leah, I would love for you to share, and then we'll connect with Lorna.
Well, it goes back to me by cleaning out the thought processes, right? So what have I done in my life to make sure that I'm always seeing people clearly? One, I had to start with myself, practicing what I call radical self-acceptance. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that we're not striving to be better every day, but it means that once we realize those thoughts or those actions or words, which again stem from the thoughts, that are not serving us or humanity, and we start to work on optimizing those thoughts, removing criticism, aversion, judgment to ourselves or others, and we make that commitment. If we start to become very rigid with ourselves, very tight, very restrictive, like, oh my gosh, I had a bad thought today, or I was criticizing myself today, that actually restricts us from being able to progress. So what we practice is radical self-acceptance and some self-amusement. How does this lead to success in relationships? Well, when we're able to radically accept ourselves, but still strive to be better every day, we can then actually accept other people. because we can see their humanity and we can see their struggles. And so, for example, if you are serving anyone and you have any judgment or criticism about them, what they do for a living, where they came from, you instantly create an interference in that relationship. And that is an energetic interference. And it also goes back to the mammalian brain. If you have a relationship with someone, if they're judging you, even if they don't say it, there's a part of you that knows, and that interferes with those relationships. So by clearing out as much as possible all negativity, judgment, criticism, and aversion, this is when we actually can see people clearly and have a relationship with them. But until then, we're looking through a lens that is tainted. And so our job is to clear out that lens. And this is what opens for those long-term relationships. I've been very blessed to have very long-term relationships with people that some people may consider controversial. But my job is not to critique them or decide who they are in the world. My job is to see them for who they are and the sacred medicine that they want to bring. But that only happens by cleaning out my own thought processes first to make sure that I embrace myself so that I can embrace others.
And, you know, just to add to that, what that requires is a tremendous amount of courage, because in order to actually operate from that place that Leah is speaking about, it requires a level of self-awareness. Self-acceptance requires self-awareness. And a lot of people accept a percentage of themselves, but have the rest of themselves blocked out. They have the rest of themselves stuck in the gray matter of the brain. They have the rest of themselves as what Jung would call the shadow self, right? And so to accept yourself for who you are requires a tremendous amount of courage that very few people actually practice. Because to know thyself, which is a lifelong exploration, the act of knowing thyself requires a hell of a lot of courage, because most people don't want to confront their own demons. Most people would rather bury those demons in the subconscious, block it away, lock it up, put a couple of boards up, and just pretend it doesn't exist. And what Jung would say is that what is suppressed later on will be expressed in later days and in uglier ways. And so to accept yourself, to know thyself, what an incredible journey that is for us as human beings. But it requires a lot of courage. And so if you don't feel like you know yourself or you're accepting yourself, examine the level of courage you have. Examine the fact that you do need to be courageous. These are things that, and a lot of times when people think of courage, they think about jumping from one end of a cliff to another or entering a boxing ring. Courage is sitting in a room by yourself quietly. Courage doesn't have to always look so sexy and adventurous like a Michael Mann movie. It doesn't have to look like Transformers. Courage sometimes is just sitting in a room quietly amongst yourself and really exploring who you are. And I think it's so important to do that once in a while. And one of my mentors is also Gurudev, and we have such a wonderful partnership with the Art of Living. In fact, that's where we do our Voices of Impact summits. The next one will be July 22nd. And, they help encourage meditation and introspective actions. And going back a little bit earlier to what Leah was saying, it's our lives as we go throughout the course of the day. The next level of that is being in a state of mind like that just regularly. Just knowing what you are, knowing the vessel that you are. And so I think that's the next step. And with that being said, we want to give a shout out to Edward Jones, who's in the audience. There are some very world-changing projects that Edward Jones is working on, and we're going to be talking about those very soon. We want to give a shout out to Eric Swanson, who's in the audience. Rock and roll. No drama, serve others. Eric, Mr. Awesome Swanson. And we want to, of course, give a shout out to Doria Cordova. Thank you for showing up on a holiday. I am with my 101-year-old mama. So sending huge hugs and love. God bless her. 101 years old. How sweet, how precious. And so we want to give a shout out to some of the people in our virtual auditorium here. And with that being said, Julianne Meyer, back to you.
Oh, I just love that everybody is still showing up and showing out for this holiday, not only on screen, but with families, friends, just celebrating in general. I just think that this is such a wonderful way for us to come together as a country and really come together and celebrate who we are. There's so much storytelling available to all of us. And as a Grammy nominated storytelling company, we get to do that all the time. And that's part of the reason why we are here today, is to change the narrative of the news, to change what people are ingesting in their ears, through their minds. That sort of, what you're feeding yourself isn't just food. So Lorna, I would love for you to share with us what's something that really excites you about being an American. You have to have you unmute. Here, I'll do it for you. There you go.
Okay. So something that excites me about being an American is the opportunity to give back freely. I've gone into the Riverside County Jail over 100 times to go and minister to women that have been separated from their kids, separated from their spouse, their parents. And I've gone into the prison as well, too, probably about a half a dozen times. And I like trying to see who I can go and build up and encourage. And I don't go and say, oh, did you shoot somebody? Did you sell some drugs? What did you do? I just go there to be a source of strength and encouragement, and to let them know that I don't need to know your story to care about you. And when I came to LA to be on the panel for your last event and to come for the showing for the Pillars of Power, it broke my heart seeing the 80,000. I didn't see all 80,000 of them, but the homeless people in our beautiful city of Los Angeles. And what lights me up is the fact that there are people like our organization, one of the speakers that we had, who's in charge of that big platform of helping the homeless, because all of these people are a missing seat at somebody's 4th of July barbecue, somebody's Thanksgiving dinner, somebody's Christmas dinner. For every win someone has, whether it's publishing a book, getting a Pulitzer Prize, being a Laker champion, those celebrations are bittersweet when people have estranged loved ones that are out on the streets due to mental illness or addiction or whatever might have caused them to be removed. So I'm happy that we have this creative place where we can come and collaborate and see how we can make a difference, because what we resist persists. And, there's a saying in the Bible that the thing that I feared the most has come upon me. And so it's like, instead of just, rolling our windows up or giving somebody $1, we really kind of got to figure out ways to get in the trenches to help change people's mindset, because gratitude's important, but it's hard for people to be grateful when they're not even content. And I'm pretty sure it's hard to be content with rats and, different things going on. I don't care how fancy your box or your tent is. So I'm happy that we have this platform and so many caring people who care about others that give us the opportunity to go out and make a difference, even if it's one person at a time.
Well, it is one person at a time. It's kind of like the starfish story. We just help one starfish at a time, throwing them back in. It's the same idea. Whoever we can help, we can help. Because if we are one, then we shouldn't let other people suffer if we can do something about that to help them. Something that I really want to point out too is this idea that Lorna, that you're bringing up. We aren't our circumstances. And we are a soul having a human experience, which is a beautiful thing. I mean, we are definitely living in this world right now, but, just to remember that piece of every human is such a great way to celebrate our birthday.
Yes. I don't want to be anywhere else, that's for sure. I'll go visit other places, Toronto, Jamaica, all these places, but I'm always happy, even London, England, where we have family all over the world, but it's always great to come back home, because there's something unique here about the United States that we can't find in other places.
Exactly.
And not that they're not equally great, but if we weren't great, everybody wouldn't be trying to get here.
I love the little ego. You know, why not celebrate that? Why not celebrate the greatness? It's not making others less by celebrating our greatness. And I think that that's something that we forget sometimes, is that we're not putting anybody else down. We're celebrating who we are and what we bring to the table.
And I just want to add one final thing to Lorna's incredible ideas that she's sharing as we wrap up here and everyone close out is what you're talking about, Lorna, reminds me of Viktor Frankl's work, Man's Search for Meaning, where he wrote about his experiences in concentration camps, where he was surrounded by death, he was surrounded by horror, he was surrounded by hunger, he was surrounded by the most gruesome things that a human being can possibly imagine from the standpoint of evil personified. And yet, even in that circumstance, which is a worse place to be than a county jail, even in that circumstance, which is a worse place to be than on Skid Row, he found that there were people that responded to that situation differently. There were people in a concentration camp where their loved ones were being burned alive just a few feet away from them, who would give their last piece of bread to someone else, who would still in that moment find their humanity and find the tiniest little act of service that they could. And it's only in those extreme circumstances that really the depths of humanity can be discovered. And so regardless of what we're going through, there's something you can do to serve. And regardless of what you're going through, there's something to be grateful for. One of our friends, Dr. Joe Vitale, talks about his days being homeless and how at one of his lowest moments where he lived in his car, he had nothing to be grateful for. He was angry. He was resentful. He was mad at God. And yet in his car with nothing to show for all of his work in life, he found a pencil and he decided to practice this concept of gratitude just as an experiment. And being homeless, he had a pencil in his car and he started to practice what it looks like to be grateful for a pencil. And the first time it was kind of like a ridiculous experiment for him. He's like, well, I'm homeless. I have no money. I have nothing. And I'm living in my car. There's nothing to be grateful for, but let me try this experiment. And he thought to himself, well, okay, let me try to be grateful for this pen. And, in his case, a pencil, in this case, a pen. And the first time it didn't really work much, but then he's like, you know what? It is a very nice pencil. You know what? I am grateful that at least I have this pencil because I'm grateful that I know how to write. I'm grateful that I can actually write a paragraph or a letter. I'm grateful that I could use this pencil to potentially write a book. Maybe I can use this pencil to write a best-selling book. And of course, he's gone on to publish over 100 books since that exercise. But there's always something to be grateful for, no matter what your circumstances are. And whether it's finding something to be grateful for, regardless of your circumstances, or helping prevent people from falling into those circumstances. How many people are in the Riverside County Jail because they did not practice self-responsibility and gratitude? Imagine if right before they made some of those decisions and choices that led them to that jail, they reflected, they were grounded, they found things to be grateful for instead of finding things to do that would lead them in jail. And of course, there's people that are in jail that probably don't belong there because they didn't have access to the right attorneys or they were caught up in certain situations. I'm not talking about those victims of circumstance that come from a part of society that unfortunately doesn't always have the resources. I'm not talking about those situations, but I'm talking about people that did do things to end up in jail. A lot of times it comes from a lack of gratitude and the lack of self-responsibility. Two of the principles that the Los Angeles Tribune instills in people to help prevent individuals from ending up in those situations. And with that being said, we're going to now have the final word from everybody here. Julianne Meyer, please.
Actually, what I want to say is that I'm so proud to be an American. I'm so proud to be a part of this platform. And I'm so grateful for the community that we've all been creating together and the relationships that we've been able to form. And, you know, something that Lorna does that I want to point out is she will just say a compliment because she genuinely means it. And it might not seem much to her, but it means something to me, for example. But it doesn't take much to show up for somebody else and change somebody else's day. And so that's something, that freedom to be able to do that, that's something I'm grateful for. Dr. Alicia Das, what about you?
I have a very quick story about what Mo was talking about. So I want to tell you about my friend Robert very briefly. Robert was on death row. Robert had been in solitary for 6 years. Robert was also doing this was at 25 years in prison. He was doing work in prison, Christian work and also inner circle work. And another prisoner was coming to murder him. And this happens much more in prison than we know. And this is a true story. I know Robert. He's in my book, actually. Robert asked his mentor, he said, what should I do? Because he had been doing this devout work in prison. And the mentor said, meditate on it first. So Robert meditated and had a vision where an angel came to him, although I think it was more than a vision. An angel came to him and said, surrender, enough killing. He was in prison for murder. They said, surrender, enough killing. Stretch out your arms like Jesus and surrender. The next day, the prisoner came to Robert's cell. Robert did that. Robert spread out his arms, knowing it meant sure death, and surrendered. And he and the prisoner worked things out. Robert did not, they didn't kill each other. And then 6 months later, I met Robert in the desert, a free man. I believe that grace entered in, seeing the choice that he made, seeing all the loving choices that we make against all odds. And Robert was improbably freed where I met him. Alone in the desert, I sat and listened to his story. Robert's about 350 pounds, and I had no fear because Robert had changed. Change is possible and change is probable when we choose love first. And I want to end with also echoing Mo. My spiritual teacher said it takes great courage to see the face of God because first you must see your own.
I love that. I love that. Lorna, what are your final thoughts? I'm sorry, we can't hear you. Let's move on to Leah.
Well,
So my final.
Actually, go ahead, Leah.
Oh, okay. Well, number one,
All
thank
right.
you.
I would say that.
1 second. Lorna, please. Let's have Leah go first. Leah.
Well, number one, I want to say thank you to all of you for being here. You know, it's a tremendous privilege that we have in this country to show up like this and share our sacred medicine. And, you know, the beauty of this country is, I will tell a quick story about one of my dearest friends. His name was J. Allen Thomas, or Jeffrey Thomas, and he was an actor, and he was a heroin addict. And he came from Ohio, and he went to Hollywood. And he ended up having some good roles. He was actually on the show Taxi for many, many years. He was the guy in the cage with Danny DeVito. And, you know, he took all of his struggles in this country. He was Afro, and he was African and white. So he was what they would call, he said they would call him high yellow. And he experienced a lot of racism. He experienced a lot of rejection from society. And this is why he became a heroin addict. Well, then he became an actor. And what he did with his life then is that he opened a place called the Heart House. And he helped so many homeless people in Los Angeles get homes, get sober, and elevate their lives. And so this is what our country is, where you can take, coming from all of the most limited means, whether you are a person with addictions or you have experienced the rejection due to the color of your skin, you can take all of it and transmute it. And you can still do whatever you want, and you can touch millions of lives with your life. And this is why I live in reverence and in gratitude for the country that we live in, because we can do almost anything we want. And like Mo was saying, it does take some responsibility. That's what my friend Jeff did. And he helped so many homeless people, but those were the people that decided to take some responsibility. That there's some people you can offer them the help and they won't take it. But actually, these human beings said, wow, somebody's going to help me. I'm going to grab onto that. And they took the action and they changed their lives. So this is why I live in reverence of the blessing and the extraordinary privilege that it is to be an American.
I love that. And I just want to reiterate, too, that we do have another Voices of Impact opportunity coming up July 22nd at the Art of Living in Los Angeles. And we will be continuing this conversation and celebrating America's 250th birthday. And so with that, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today, everyone, and happy 4th of July.
Spiritual means eternal. It means forever. So we're all spiritual beings because we're all eternal beings. What it looks like in daily life is the intention you establish for your day. Many people suffer from an intention deficit disorder. They don't have any intention. They just wake up and go into the world and react to whatever is happening on the to-do list or whatever they have to do. But they don't have an underlying intention. A good spiritual practice is to establish an intention when you wake up. You know, I intend that this day be very creative and very productive. I intend that doors open for me. I meet really good people that are in alignment with my mission. You establish intention, and then the world starts to bend towards that. But if you don't have an intention, then you get bent by the world. 25 years ago, it wasn't this much stimulation. 50 years ago, it was not this much stimulation. So we're bombarded all the time. And so you have to have some level of intention, some modicum of practice to be strong enough not to allow the world to shape you, but that you become a world shaper.